We need to talk. We need to talk about sexual harassment and sexual misconduct and sexual assault allegations and what they really mean. As a sex and intimacy educator, I have a problem calling Louis C.K.'s actions sexual misconduct. There are 5 stories of women who claim that he acted inappropriately. And while one of them is a clear case of sexual harassment in the workplace, the other stories I feel are just kind of getting thrown into the mix to give the other stories credibility. Now, I don't know Louis C.K., he may not be a nice guy, but to include him as a front runner in this Hollywood expose seems dangerous to me. Overall, I feel like what we're looking for are clear guidelines as to what constitutes consent and what is appropriate behavior. And by not discussing the incidents in which he's being accused, I feel like we're doing both men and women a huge disservice. In the case of sexual harassment in the workplace, she may have been offended by his question, but he asked if he could ask her a question, and then he asked if she would go back to his dressing room and watch him masturbate. I can see where she would be offended. It doesn't belong anywhere in the workplace. But if she had a problem with it, she should have complained to the people that she works for, and those people should have handled it. So while he may have acted inappropriately, everybody else is also responsible for that situation perpetuating. I know that people don't feel empowered to say no. They don't feel empowered to speak up. And I'm not saying that that's not a reality of being a woman. But to continue claiming that we don't have a choice doesn't help us. In order to empower women, we also have to encourage them to stand by their choices. I have a choice to lose my job, to risk my career, but it's still my choice. In the situation where 2 women were asked to come to his hotel room and agreed, and then asked if it was okay if he took out his penis and they consented, we should be talking about this more and using it as an opportunity to teach and empower people. Consent is the goal. If we are ultimately wanting people to respect others enough to give them the opportunity to say yes or no, then we shouldn't be shaming Louis C.K. for asking for consent. We may not like that he was asking for consent to masturbate in front of somebody, but we can't shame him for wanting to perform a sexual act with a consenting adult. I'm reading comments all over Twitter and social media that are saying that his behavior is abusive and bizarre. It's not bizarre to want to masturbate, and it's not bizarre to want to masturbate in front of someone, and it's not bizarre to want to masturbate in front of someone that you think might like you. And the only way we know that is to ask. Louis C.K. admitted that he shouldn't have done it because these women admired him. But isn't that why they agreed to go to his hotel room to begin with? We can't take away someone's right to their sexual pleasure because people admire them. We would be going after every person of importance: doctors, lawyers, personal trainers, fitness celebrities, anybody that could potentially have some sort of power over someone else. Isn't that how we meet a potential mate or sexual partner, is because they admire or are attracted to us in some way? And what about his actions make them inappropriate? Is it because he asked to masturbate? If he had asked them to have sexual intercourse and they consented, would we say his actions were inappropriate? If he were a more attractive guy and asked them if they wanted to see his penis and they said yes, would they even be offended? If Louis C.K. had been a woman and invited a male actor back to their hotel room and then asked for consent to masturbate in front of them, would this be considered sexual misconduct? There are a lot of details we can be caught up in, and this is the case with a lot of sexual harassment issues, sexual assault issues, is we get caught up in details. What was she wearing? Was she drinking? Was she flirting with him? Did she seem to like him? And none of that matters. The only thing that matters in those cases is whether or not consent was given. And personally, I think if someone wants to ask me if it's okay to ask me a question and I say yes, and then they ask me a question that maybe I wasn't expecting to hear, I still have a choice to say yes or no. and I appreciate the opportunity to give or decline consent. I may choose to say yes. I may choose to say, no, thank you. I may choose to get up and walk out of the room. I may choose to say yes and then change my mind halfway through. I may say yes and regret having said yes a day, a week, a year later. All of that is my right, and I want to maintain my right to choose, but I also want to encourage people to ask. And this is where the case of Louis C.K. is a problem. If we don't continue having conversations about it, about what makes it sexual misconduct, about whether or not each incident is sexual misconduct, then we're losing an opportunity to learn something. We're losing an opportunity to teach people that consent is important and what constitutes consent. And in what situation asking for consent to masturbate in front of someone is appropriate behavior. We have these discussions. We create guidelines in order to create reform in the industry, in our communities, in the world. And we educate and empower people. We empower women to say no. We empower women to share their stories when they're being treated inappropriately. And we support those women when we find that they have in fact been treated inappropriately. Women have a voice and we have a choice. And we need to empower each other to make good choices and to speak up when things happen to us that are inappropriate or illegal. And we need to trust that the people that we go to those things with are going to handle the situation in a way that doesn't perpetuate this type of behavior. When an adult person asks another adult to engage in a sexual act and is given consent, we can't just call this sexual misconduct. We need to talk about it. We can't just shame this person because the sex act that they requested is something that we don't like or we don't agree with. We can't take away someone's right to their own sexual pleasure because they've become someone of importance or power or admiration. We have to give people the tools so that they learn how to engage appropriately and responsibly with each other in adult situations.